let's move on to Princess Kate's mom, otherwise known as Super Granny. Carole Middleton is featured in this week's issue of People magazine, and as a grandma to royal babies, she is completely hands-on. In fact, Imogen, as you know, that when Princess Kate and Prince William went to India, Carole watched the kids.
What was meant to be a joyful royal family celebration quickly turned into a moment that left Carole Middleton completely shaken. After witnessing an uncomfortable exchange involving Princess Charlotte and Queen Camilla during a private gathering at Windsor, Catherine's mother reportedly could no longer stay silent. Behind the palace, smiles and carefully staged appearances, whispers of tension have now sparked serious questions about what truly happened behind closed doors. But was she right to confront the Queen Consort head-on, or should she have handled the whole thing? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. To help us create more videos and uncover the latest royal drama, please subscribe. Inside the royal gathering, Carole Middleton had always been the kind of grandmother who paid attention to every little detail. She remembered favorite bedtime stories, carefully picked birthday gifts, and once spent days helping design Princess Charlotte's nursery so it would feel warm, peaceful, and magical. Family meant everything to her, and although she understood the complicated rules surrounding royal life, she believed love and protection should always come before titles and traditions. That was why the invitation from Windsor Castle felt so special. On that cool autumn morning, Carole arrived at the castle believing she was walking into a joyful family celebration. Queen Camilla herself had personally invited her to a private gathering honoring Charlotte's outstanding achievements at Lambrook School. It was described as small, relaxed, and intimate. Nothing formal, nothing political, just close relatives coming together to celebrate a bright young girl making her parents proud. To Carole, the invitation seemed like proof that the relationship between the Middletons and the royal family had finally reached a place of true comfort and trust. For years, she had carefully stayed out of royal business, never overstepping boundaries or interfering in palace matters. She knew exactly how delicate the family structure could be. But beneath her calm and respectful nature was a fiercely protective grandmother who would never ignore danger if it threatened someone she loved. At first, everything about the day appeared perfect. The towering stone walls of Windsor Castle stood proudly beneath the pale morning sky, while the gardens looked almost unreal in their beauty. Carole had visited many times before, yet the sight still amazed her. But more than the castle itself, she was excited to see Charlotte. Hearing about her granddaughter's academic success had filled her with pride long before she arrived. Inside, Prince William and Princess Catherine welcomed her warmly alongside their children. Prince George raced through the halls with endless excitement, moving around the castle as though he already knew every hidden corridor inside the ancient building. Little Prince Louis clutched a tiny toy airplane in his hand, eager to show everyone his newest treasure. And Charlotte stood smiling brightly, glowing with confidence after all the praise she had received for her schoolwork. The celebration had been intentionally designed to feel cozy rather than royal. Instead of using one of the grand state rooms, Camilla had suggested the smaller oak room to create a more personal atmosphere. Fresh scones had been prepared in the royal kitchens, alongside Charlotte's favorite cucumber sandwiches and elegant afternoon tea arrangements. For the first hour, laughter filled the room naturally. Catherine proudly shared stories about Charlotte's impressive history project on medieval castles, which seemed especially fitting while surrounded by centuries of royal history. William mentioned how Charlotte had also been selected for an advanced reading program at school, a sign of her intelligence and curiosity. As Carole listened, her heart swelled with emotion. Charlotte reminded her so much of Catherine at that age, thoughtful, determined, and endlessly curious about the world around her. While the family smiled and celebrated young Princess Charlotte, something far more unsettling was quietly unfolding beneath the calm atmosphere. Hidden tension lingered behind careful glances, building toward a moment no one expected. Inside Windsor Castle, Carole Middleton witnessed something that changed her view of certain royals forever: But what exactly made her blood run cold? Let's break it down. Hidden royal tension revealed. The first signs appeared so quietly that almost nobody inside Windsor Castle seemed to notice them. The laughter, the warm conversations, and the elegant royal atmosphere easily covered the growing tension beneath the surface. But Carole Middleton noticed it immediately. Years of raising children, understanding emotions, and reading people had sharpened her instincts in ways most could never understand. Princess Charlotte had been glowing with excitement that afternoon. She happily spoke about a school history project, proudly sharing facts she had carefully memorized. Her face was bright, her voice full of energy, and everyone around her seemed amused by her enthusiasm. But the very second Queen Camilla approached the group, something changed. Charlotte's cheerful expression faded almost instantly. It was not dramatic enough for others to question it. To most people, it would have looked like nothing more than a child calming down around adults. But Carole saw the sudden stiffness in Charlotte's posture. She noticed the hesitation in the little girl's eyes and the way her voice became smaller and more careful. Camilla greeted Charlotte warmly enough on the surface. Her words sounded polite, even affectionate. She gently reminded the young princess not to become too excited before lunch, and joked about the old castle walls needing quiet voices. The comments sounded harmless to everyone else nearby. Yet beneath the smooth smile and soft laughter, Carole sensed something colder. Charlotte immediately became quieter. The spark that had filled her moments earlier seemed to disappear piece by piece. Instead of laughing freely, she stood cautiously beside her mother, carefully choosing every word she spoke. The transformation was so controlled and gradual that it almost looked rehearsed. And that was exactly what disturbed Carole the most. She had spent years around powerful people and public figures. She understood how subtle behavior could carry hidden meaning. Tiny looks, carefully chosen words, gentle comments designed to sound innocent while quietly diminishing someone else. And now, watching her granddaughter slowly retreat into herself, every instinct inside Carole warned her that this was not an isolated moment. Then came the lunch. The smaller dining room inside Windsor Castle looked stunning, filled with sparkling crystal glasses, polished silver, and sunlight pouring through the tall windows overlooking the gardens. At first, the atmosphere seemed relaxed. King Charles appeared especially warm and attentive toward the children, encouraging Charlotte to speak about her schoolwork and praising her intelligence. The young princess brightened again under her grandfather's encouragement. She eagerly shared facts about Windsor Castle and the long line of monarchs who had lived there. Charles listened proudly, clearly delighted by her curiosity. But while Charlotte spoke, Carole noticed Camilla's smile slowly tightening. The moment Charlotte paused to breathe, Camilla smoothly interrupted, suggesting perhaps the adults should speak now instead. The effect was immediate. Charlotte's cheeks turned red with embarrassment as silence fell around the table. Her confidence vanished completely, and she lowered her eyes toward her plate. Even King Charles looked caught off guard. William and Catherine exchanged uneasy glances across the table, while Princess Anne quickly changed the subject to ease the suffocating tension growing inside the room. But for Carole, the damage had already been done. But by then, Carole had already seen enough, and what happened next would push everything toward the breaking point. What shocking moment was about to unfold inside Windsor Castle that no one would be able to ignore? Stay tuned. The breaking point inside Windsor Castle. After lunch, the royal family slowly moved out onto the garden terrace for tea and coffee. The cool air carried the golden warmth of the afternoon sun, creating what should have been a peaceful family moment. Beyond the terrace, the garden stretched beautifully across the grounds of Windsor Castle, glowing with the colors of early autumn. The children were finally allowed to run freely through the gardens under the watchful eyes of their security officers. And for the first time all day, Princess Charlotte seemed truly relaxed again. Carole Middleton noticed the immediate difference. The The little girl's laughter returned as she chased after her brothers through the pathways lined with flowers and trimmed hedges. The tension that had shadowed her earlier seemed to disappear, replaced once more by the cheerful energy so natural to her. Watching from the terrace, Carole felt relieved seeing her granddaughter acting like an ordinary child again, instead of a nervous royal figure trying not to say the wrong thing. As Carole stood speaking quietly with Catherine about upcoming family plans, movement near the stone steps caught her attention. Charlotte was hurrying back toward the terrace alone. In her tiny hands, she carried a small bundle of late-blooming roses she had picked near the garden wall. Her face glowed with excitement and pride, eager to share her discovery with the adults. She called out happily as she climbed the steps, her voice filled with innocent joy. Catherine smiled warmly, encouraging her daughter to come closer and show everyone the flowers she had found. For a brief moment, everything seemed perfectly normal. Then Camilla's voice suddenly cut through the calm afternoon air with shocking sharpness. "Charlotte, stop right there." The harshness in her tone instantly froze the young princess where she stood. The entire terrace fell quiet. Charlotte's smile vanished so quickly it was painful to watch. Camilla's eyes immediately focused on the child's appearance. She pointed out the tiny grass stains on Charlotte's dress and the mud on her shoes as though the little girl had committed some terrible offense. In reality, Charlotte simply looked like a child who had been happily playing outdoors. But Camilla's criticism grew colder with every word. She spoke loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, questioning what people would think if they saw the young princess looking unkempt. Charlotte's shoulders slowly dropped. Her voice became barely audible as she tried to apologize, explaining she had only wanted to bring the flowers inside. But Camilla interrupted before she could finish, scolding her for behaving improperly and suggesting she should go clean herself up before embarrassing the family any further. The words hit the terrace like ice. Carole felt her stomach tighten as she watched Charlotte's bright eyes immediately fill with tears. The little bouquet slipped from the child's hands, the flowers scattering across the stone floor in complete silence. No one moved at first. Even the adults seemed stunned by the cruelty of the moment. And right there, something inside Carole Middleton finally snapped. This no longer felt accidental. And as anger quietly began building inside her, nobody could have predicted what would happen next. But what shocking accusation was Carole preparing to make inside the royal halls? And would Camilla finally reveal the side of herself hidden behind those carefully controlled smiles? Keep watching to find out. The confrontation that shook Windsor. Carole Middleton rose from her chair slowly, but there was nothing uncertain about the movement. The calm grace that had guided her through years of business challenges and public attention suddenly carried a different kind of strength. Without saying a word at first, she walked directly toward Princess Charlotte, who stood frozen beside the scattered flowers that had fallen onto the terrace floor moments earlier. Ignoring the expensive clothes she wore, Carole bent down immediately and began picking up the crushed petals one by one. Her actions were gentle, but deliberate. Every person on the terrace watched silently as she carefully gathered the flowers Charlotte had proudly collected from the garden earlier that afternoon. "These are beautiful, darling," Carole said warmly, making sure everyone nearby could hear her clearly. "You chose them with such care, and you look exactly how a happy little girl should look after spending time outside enjoying herself." Charlotte's watery eyes lifted slightly as Carole brushed dirt and tiny leaves from her dress with soft, reassuring hands. Then, without hesitation, Carole wrapped one protective arm around her granddaughter's shoulders and slowly turned to face Camilla directly. For the first time that day, the warmth in her voice disappeared. "I believe there's been a serious misunderstanding," Carole said calmly. "Charlotte has done absolutely nothing wrong. She's behaving like a normal, joyful child at a family gathering." Camilla looked visibly stunned. Her expression hardened almost immediately. "I don't think you fully understand the standards expected within this family. I understand perfectly, Carole interrupted sharply. The interruption alone shocked everyone standing nearby. Carole Middleton had always respected royal rules, always chosen diplomacy over confrontation. But now, something had changed. Years of patience seemed to vanish in a single moment. What I understand, Carole continued firmly, is that my granddaughter has spent this afternoon being corrected, criticized, and made to feel embarrassed simply for being curious, intelligent, and full of life. And I'm telling you right now that it ends here. The terrace became painfully quiet. Even Prince William and Catherine appeared stunned as they watched Carole stand her ground with a fierceness nobody expected. The tension in the air felt suffocating. "Carole," Camilla replied coldly, her tone carrying the same authority that had silenced countless people before. "You are clearly overreacting." "No," Carole answered instantly. "I am reacting exactly the way any grandmother should after watching a child's spirit slowly being torn apart." Her words struck the terrace like thunder. Charlotte is only 8 years old. She's kind, thoughtful, bright, and wonderfully well-behaved. She deserves encouragement, not humiliation. And I will never stand quietly while someone tries to make her feel ashamed for simply being herself. By then, King Charles had already stepped forward, clearly uncomfortable with the growing confrontation. But Carole wasn't finished. "I've spent my entire life helping children build confidence, not lose it," she continued. "Charlotte has flourished because she's surrounded by love and support. What she does not need is someone convincing her that her natural joy is somehow a problem." Camilla's face tightened as Carole's voice grew even firmer. "Telling a child they're embarrassing the family isn't guidance," she said quietly. "It's emotional manipulation. And no title in the world makes that acceptable." Now, what happened once the royal staff, William, and even Charles were forced to choose sides behind closed doors, and did Charlotte overhear far more than anyone realized? The aftermath of the royal confrontation. What followed next felt like one of the heaviest silences Windsor Castle had ever witnessed. The air on the terrace suddenly became painfully tense, as though every person present understood that something serious had just happened. Carole Middleton stood firmly beside Princess Charlotte, one arm protectively around the young girl, while the scattered flowers remained across the stone floor between them. No one seemed to know what to say. Camilla appeared completely caught off guard. For the first time all afternoon, the carefully controlled confidence in her expression began to crack. She opened her mouth several times as though searching for words that could somehow repair the damage already done, but nothing came out. The atmosphere had shifted too far. King Charles looked deeply uncomfortable as his eyes moved between his wife and Charlotte. It was clear he suddenly realized this was not a simple misunderstanding or an overly emotional moment. Something much bigger had been building beneath the surface for quite some time, and now it had exploded directly in front of the family. Nearby, William and Catherine remained silent, but their faces revealed everything. They watched Carole standing up for Charlotte with fierce determination, and there was an unmistakable sense that they knew this was a battle they should have confronted themselves long before now. The guilt and tension between them seemed impossible to hide. Then came the moment that changed the atmosphere completely. Charlotte slowly looked up at Carole, her tearful eyes filled not only with sadness, but with relief. In a tiny, trembling voice, she softly thanked her grandmother. Those few simple words hit everyone harder than any argument could have. The spell of silence immediately broke. Catherine quickly stepped forward and moved beside her daughter, gently placing a comforting hand on Charlotte's shoulder. William followed closely behind, his expression cold and firm in a way that left no doubt where his loyalty stood. Together they formed a quiet wall of protection around their daughter. Catherine finally spoke, her voice calm but strained as she suggested it might be best to end the gathering early. Charles slowly agreed, though the usual confidence in his voice had disappeared completely. He admitted everyone likely needed time to think about what had just unfolded. Meanwhile, Camilla looked around the terrace at the faces surrounding her. Charlotte's tear-streaked expression, Carole's protective stance. William and Catherine are standing united, and Charles is struggling to hide his discomfort. For perhaps the first time in years, she seemed completely unable to regain control of the room. What explosive truth would finally be revealed once the palace walls were no longer listening? Let's explore. The silent fallout. The ride back to the Middleton family home was deathly quiet at first, with Charlotte sitting between her parents while Carole drove and replayed everything that had just unfolded at Windsor Castle. She was shocked she had ever found herself in a direct confrontation with a senior royal figure, yet she noticed Charlotte gradually relaxing, which reassured her that she had acted correctly. Charlotte softly asked if she had been bad today, prompting Carole to stop the car and reassure her that she was not bad, but simply curious, intelligent, and full of life, encouraging her never to feel ashamed of those qualities. Catherine supported this reassurance by holding her daughter's hand and affirming that she had been perfect, while William also stepped in, stating that although adults are usually respected, the Queen Consort had made a mistake in how she handled Charlotte. This moment of honesty helped Charlotte process her emotions and understand that her feelings were valid, while the adults around her worked to protect her emotional well-being. In the aftermath, Catherine and William decided to limit Charlotte's unsupervised interactions with Camilla, ensuring greater supervision during family gatherings and committing to address any future issues immediately instead of ignoring them. The following day, King Charles personally contacted Carole Middleton, offering an awkward but sincere apology and acknowledging that the situation had been mishandled, while promising corrective steps. However, Camilla did not reach out, which created a sense of distance and suggested unresolved tension within the family. Over time, changes became visible at royal gatherings, where Charlotte was never left alone with Camilla and was always kept under close supervision by family members. More importantly, Charlotte began to regain confidence, becoming more expressive, playful, and open after previously showing signs of anxiety during royal events. The supportive environment helped her flourish both at home and at school, strengthening her bond with Carole, who had stood up for her during the difficult moment. This incident also spread quietly through influential circles, where Carole Middleton was praised for defending her granddaughter and maintaining her principles despite the royal setting. The broader message emphasized the responsibility of adults to protect children, especially those growing up under public scrutiny, where pressure and expectations can easily overwhelm innocence. It highlighted how even children born into privilege, like Charlotte, still require emotional safety, understanding, and protection from the weight of royal expectations. The experience reinforced the importance of placing emotional well-being above protocol in sensitive family situations, while encouraging healthier communication among all parties involved in Charlotte's upbringing. Meanwhile, subtle shifts continued to reshape how royal interactions were managed, ensuring closer supervision and renewed attention to Charlotte's emotional responses during both public and private appearances. While conversations about responsibility and protection became more serious within the household, deeper questions emerged about how royal children should be raised and guided. Nothing was fully resolved, leaving uncertainty about what would come next behind closed palace doors. Inside Camilla and Kate's different visions for Charlotte's future, what quiet clash of values could shape the young princess's path, and who will ultimately influence the life she grows into? Let's take a look. Charlotte's future divide. Within the walls of the modern monarchy, a subtle but growing difference in vision is beginning to emerge over how Princess Charlotte is being shaped for her future role. On one side, there is Queen Camilla, who is often associated with a strong sense of royal hierarchy, tradition, and duty, where discipline and protocol are seen as the foundation of survival within the institution. On the other side stands Catherine, Princess of Wales, who, influenced deeply by her upbringing and her mother, Carole Middleton, is believed to be steering her children toward a more balanced and emotionally grounded childhood. Reports highlighted in publications such as The Times of India suggest that Catherine's parenting style is calm, structured, and deliberately modern, focused on allowing her children, especially Princess Charlotte, to experience as much normality as possible despite their extraordinary position. School runs, outdoor play, and emotional openness are often described as central to this approach, reflecting a deliberate attempt to shield them from the harsh pressures of royal expectation. However, within palace traditions, there remains an unspoken expectation that future royals must be prepared early for duty, restraint, and public responsibility. This is where Camilla's influence is often interpreted as aligning more closely with the institution itself, where personal comfort can sometimes take a back seat to public duty. At the heart of this delicate balance is Carole Middleton, a woman without a royal title, yet widely discussed in media and commentary as one of the most emotionally stabilizing figures in the Wales family. The Guardian has previously noted how Carole's presence and guidance helped create a grounded environment for Catherine, and by extension, for the next generation of royals. Her influence is often described not in terms of authority, but in emotional impact, shaping how children like Charlotte experience family life behind palace gates. What makes this dynamic even more intriguing is how Carole's quiet involvement appears to complement Catherine's parenting philosophy, subtly reinforcing a vision of childhood that prioritizes warmth, emotional security, and personal freedom. Royal commentators have even suggested that Carole's role, while unofficial, carries a form of soft power within the family structure, one that is felt rather than formally acknowledged. And as these two visions continue to exist side by side, one rooted in tradition and duty, the other in emotional grounding and normality, questions begin to emerge about what kind of future is truly being designed for Charlotte as she grows within this unique dual influence. Looking forward, the real question becomes this: as these two powerful philosophies continue to quietly shape the young princess behind palace doors, which vision will ultimately define the woman she is destined to become? And could a deeper shift within the monarchy already be underway without anyone fully realizing it? Stay tuned. Charlotte's lasting change. Princess Charlotte continued growing into a bright, confident, and deeply curious young girl, surrounded by people who loved her fiercely. At school, she impressed teachers with her intelligence and determination, while at home she filled every room with energy, laughter, and endless questions about the world around her. Those closest to her noticed how much more relaxed and open she had become over time. The quiet hesitation that once appeared during certain royal events slowly disappeared, replaced by a stronger sense of confidence that seemed impossible to ignore. Within the Middleton family, the events of that tense day at Windsor were never spoken about as some embarrassing family secret. Instead, it became a reminder of how far the people around Charlotte were willing to go to protect her happiness and emotional well-being. Carole Middleton especially became an even more important figure in Charlotte's life. The young princess understood, even at her age, that her grandmother had defended her when things felt uncomfortable and unfair. That realization created a bond between them, built on trust, loyalty, and unconditional love. Carole herself remained completely silent in public. She never shared details, never gave interviews, and never tried to turn the incident into attention for herself. But people close to her believed she had no regrets about speaking up. In her eyes, being a grandmother meant far more than simply attending royal events or smiling for cameras. It meant protecting her grandchildren no matter who stood in front of her, even if that meant challenging powerful traditions and uncomfortable expectations. The relationship between the Middleton family and Camilla, however, quietly changed afterward. Publicly, everyone still behaved with respect during appearances and ceremonies. Smiles remained in place, conversations stayed polite, and photographs continued to show a united royal image. Yet behind those carefully managed moments, The warmth that once existed no longer felt natural. Every interaction seemed more cautious, measured, and emotionally distant. The experience also left a lasting impact on the entire family. It forced difficult conversations about boundaries, emotional safety, and the importance of listening when a child feels hurt or uncomfortable. Charlotte learned something powerful through it all. She learned that the adults closest to her would never stay silent if her happiness or confidence was threatened, regardless of status, pressure, or royal expectations. So what do you think? Was Carole right to confront the Queen Consort head-on? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.